Well, I get asked all the time, so to get a service dog, for my child. The thing is, one size doesn't fit everybody. And for some children on the autism spectrum, a service dog would be the best possible thing you could do. And for another child, it might not be the best thing to do. There are some kids that are going to just instantly bond with a dog, and that would be an ideal candidate for a service dog. There's other kids in the beginning that might be a little afraid because it's something new, but then they're going to warm up and bond with the dog. Then there's going to be a few kids that have sensory issues. They may be afraid of the dog because it may bark, and if it barks, it hurts their ears. Some children are very sensitive to smell, and they won't be able to tolerate the smell of the dog. I mean, people just need to be aware of the sensory issues in autism. And for certain individuals, the dog might cause sensory issues. But for a lot of other kids, it'd be really good. And I'll often get asked by parents, what should I do? And I said, well, you could try out your next door neighbor's lab and see if the child likes dogs. That's the first step. Well, there's been actually some published journal articles on this, and people need to realize the dog needs time off. The vest can come off, and then it's time to play. I talked to one researcher that had done some studies on service dogs, and there were, some dogs placed really inappropriately where the family didn't know the dog has to be taken out to go to the bathroom. Things need to be done carefully. Too often in the autism field, people are looking for single magic fixes. A service dog is not a single magic fix, but there are certain situations where a service dog could be really, really beneficial. Well, another place where a dog would be helpful is sort of as a social icebreaker. You have the dog, then people want to talk to you about your dog. You're out there walking your dog, you get to know other people that have dogs. Well, there are certain situations where the dog's used as a therapy dog, where the therapist that's working with the child has the dog there, and having the dog there helps to get the child to interact. That's different than a service dog that might be used to prevent an autistic child from running away. And where you'd be most likely to get a problem with the dog getting stressed is the one where the child's actually tethered to the dog. Those dogs are going to need time off. You're going to need to make sure that the parents understand the responsibility of having a dog, or the parents suitable for having a dog. I think it's extremely important that the family be trained, that the family be evaluated to see if it's a suitable location for a dog, because I'm also concerned about the dog's welfare. There have definitely been some problems where the dog's welfare has been compromised, and that's not acceptable. I've talked to several parents where their child said their first words while riding a horse. And there's like 3 really good things you get from a horse. It's a really fun activity, you have to have a relationship with the horse, but also riding involves balancing and rhythm. And activities that require balancing and rhythm often have a really good stabilizing effect on the nervous system. This is why OTs will sometimes slowly swing a child, or maybe have them sit on a ball, which is balancing. And sometimes this helps to bring in speech. The slow rhythmic activities seem to somehow have a stabilizing effect on the nervous system. Now I want to emphasize, this doesn't work with every autistic child. Sensory issues in autism are extremely variable. Now I want to emphasize that in real little kids, 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, the single most important thing is getting at least 20 hours a week of educational intervention with an effective teacher. And an effective teacher is gently insistent. They kind of know how hard to push. Every expert will agree on that. And having a service dog is really, really nice, but that does not replace, especially in 2, 3, and 4-year-olds where you're trying to get speech jump started, a lot of hours of one-to-ones with an effective teacher. You see, you got to intrude somewhat into the autistic child's world to pull them out of it. If you intrude too hard, they'll go into sensory overload. And some kids are more prone to go into sensory overload than other kids. There are some kids that absolutely cannot tolerate fluorescent lights. They can see it flickering like a discotheque. Another child is not bothered by fluorescent lights. The most important thing, especially with the very young children, is the quality of the teachers. And what I have observed is some teachers have the knack on how to work with these little kids. They know how to be gently insistent, and some don't. I think it's almost like they have it by instinct. And that's the thing I'm going to emphasize absolutely the most. I talk to a lot of people that are really low income, and they can't get any services. They got a 3-year-old sitting rocking in the corner and nothing's being done. I said the worst thing that you can do is nothing. I said go to your church group, your synagogue group, whatever, and find some grandmothers, find some students to come in and work with that child, because you got to work with them. You got to engage them, teach them turn taking, teach them nursery rhymes, learn words, but engage them. That is the really important thing. I think that the idea of having a videotape of someone like you that's an effective therapist working with a child, and the parents can go and they can look at that videotape and then do more of it. And that can be very useful for other people that have to work with that child. Because I see over and over again, as I travel around the country, children are just not getting enough education. And you gotta work on them. You know, teaching table manners. You know, you work at the table. You're always giving an opportunity to communicate. You know, when I say you're doing, 20 or 30 hours a week, that doesn't mean you just sit at a table and do it. You're doing all kinds of things where you interact. But the important thing is you got to interact with a child and engage them without going into sensory overload. Some teachers get in there and push too hard, kid will go into sensory overload. You know, some kids kind of yank open the front door. My speech teacher would say, now come on, pay attention. Now that worked with me. But there's another kid with their mono-channel. They can't see and hear at the same time. They either got to look at something or they got to hear something, but they can't do both. And if you try to make them do both, they'll go into shutdown, and it's like pounding away on a brick wall. So how do you figure out what kind of kids you got? If you take them in the big supermarket and it's a screaming fit every time, then you probably have very, very severe sensory problems.